Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're jumping back into Thor with Legacy of Thanos Part 2. And with this one, we learn more about Bor's secrets, which just so happen to include his first time meeting the Mad Titan, as well as their first impressions on one another. So with that said, let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so picking up from our last talk where we saw Corvus Glaive take Lausa, Thor's younger sister, in order to use her blood to unlock doors that can only be opened by the bloodline of Bor. This led us to following the two of them into an area of Niflheim that had been forbidden for eons from the days when Bor sat on the throne of Asgard. But this then of course led Thor to following after Corvus Glaive to save his sister Lausa, while also bringing Runa with him, who's one of the original Valkyries who served under Bor. But also with them traveling to this forbidden space and following the footsteps of Corvus Glaive, it's caused them to come across a number of hidden secrets. And the next one that they find here, they discover when they come across Bor. But it's here where we continue, where we find out that this isn't actually Bor, but instead it's a time echo that shows us more about the war that had taken place here eons ago. And one of the first things that they see in this time echo is Brune trying to convince Bor not to use this mysterious uncontrollable weapon that he's had his sorcerers working on to end all wars, as Brune goes on to tell Bor that the Valkyries serve him in everything, but they can't follow him in this, with it conflicting with the Valkyries' responsibility to the dead. And with hearing this, Bor is upset, to say the least, because the way he sees it, if the Valkyries are not following him with this, then they're not following him in everything. Which, I mean, objectively, he is right. But with seeing this Thor, he questions his grandfather. But Runa stops Thor because she wants to see how this had played out. Even though part of this she knows, though she did miss some details since she was fighting at the time. But much like Runa had mentioned before, we see that the sorcerers reported to Bor, telling him that the power is unstable and that they're not sure that it'll work. But then it's here where Bor says that it will work, because why else would he be here? And he goes on to tell one of his sorcerers that there is also a stranger there that is not of their time, or in other words, a time traveler, who wouldn't have went through all the trouble to get there if this power didn't work. And just shortly after, we find that Bor's defenses have been breached, and with hearing this, Bor makes his way back out to the fight. And as he does, he tells Brune that she can make up for her disloyalty on the battlefield. But as Bor makes his way back outside, it's here where we discover that this stranger, or this time traveler, just happens to be Thanos. But with us seeing Thanos here in this time echo, which is really more of like a magical replay, but with seeing this matchup take place, it's likely that the information that they're seeing here has much to do with the missing notes that Thanos had made about the Black Infinity Stone, as well as Bor Burisan. Just that at the time, Corvus Glaive made his way to it first before Thor could read it. But with us now seeing how this played out, we get a look at the confrontation between the two, which initially started with some choice words, like most confrontations do. But essentially Bor tells Thanos that like any mortal, he's only seeking this power to escape fate, while in response Thanos tells Bor that much like any other god, Bor is quick to dismiss anyone he deems beneath him. And because gods lack vision, Thanos says that Bor is just gonna sit on this power and not make proper use of it, to where then he continues to taunt Bor by saying, "What do gods know about death?" Which from there for Bor, that was just fighting words, because he responded to Thanos like, "Let me show you." But while Thor and Runa are watching this fight take place, Thor asks Runa where was she when this was happening, and she lets him know at this point she was defending the Western Front, and it was around this time when the news had reached her and she was told that the king had entered the battle. But also in this news she was informed that Bor was fighting someone who was killing friend and foe alike. But before she could make her way over there, Bor's sorcerers had lost control and the explosion had taken place, erupting with magical force just like Runa had described before. But even with the two of them seeing this, and as accurate as it lined up with Runa's description, she still tells Thor that they can't trust anything that they see in this place. And as they continue, Thor asks Runa what happened to Thanos, and she quickly gathers that he's talking about the stranger. To where then she lets Thor know that some were killed by the explosion, while others were shielded by the mountain, and she doesn't think that Thanos was among those who were shielded. And when Thor hears this, he looks back at her and he responds that Thanos definitely was. But just after this, we then head back over to Corvus Glaive and Lausa, who have now made it past the door that Corvus needed the blood of Bor to open, which of course still works with descendants of Bor, which again is why Corvus kidnapped her. But now with Lhasa realizing that Corvus had lied to her about taking her to her mother, this has now caused her to not go with him as peacefully as before. And as they continue, Corvus goes on to tell Lhasa that everyone lies, and not just him, but also her parents, and even her to herself, in order to make life bearable. But even with Corvus going on about telling Lhasa how everyone lies in order to defy the universe with their own principles and belief systems, for the most part it really feels like he's just trying to buy time until they get to the next door where he needs to draw her blood again to open it. But it's at this moment when we then go back to Runa and Thor as they make their way closer to Corvus and Lhasa. And as they do, they come across a school of golden fish, each of which are memories. But with all of them racing towards and past Runa and Thor, the fish are then followed by the smell of death. And it's here where they realize that these memories are being chased by a wild pack of Draugrs. And as it turns out, these Draugrs are like vultures for these memories. And Bruna goes on to explain to Thor that the Draugrs scavenge the carcasses of the soul, not for the flesh, but for thoughts, feelings, and memories, or whatever's left when the soul dies. But for Thor, he's more concerned with the why, as far as why these souls weren't taken to the afterlife. And it's here where Runa tells Thor about Bor's belief in the circle of life. Because the same way a battle could be fought in a field, and then a year later that field is the most lush and greenest field you've ever seen after the bodies have decomposed and fertilized the ground, well, Bor believed that the spiritual energy left in the dead could be harnessed and forged into something new. And though it takes a great power to break a soul into pieces, Bor was able to do this because he still had the shell of the Galactus seed. And with hearing this is something that goes back to the Mighty Thor Volume 2 written by Matt Fraction, because it was at that time where we were introduced to the Galactus seed and told of its power, back when the Silver Surfer confronted Odin to retrieve it, because it was at that time between issues 2 and 3 where we were told by Odin that it is older than everything and more powerful, and later we were told by the Surfer that its power, energy, reach beyond the boundaries that even language or mathematics can explain. It predates us all and it will outlast us all. It is the eternal soul of the All-God. And I mean, at the time, the Surfer just wanted to take it back to Galactus to satiate his hunger, like for good. But of course, Odin then hit him with the GTFOH and things got messy. But from what we're told, that is the immense power that Bor used, or better yet, his sorcerers theorized that they could use by burning it in the deep eternal flames of this mountain so they can pull souls to pieces and repurpose that energy. But as Runa and Thor continue, they're also followed by this mysterious beetle who we'll talk more about in a few. But as they continue, they see a rather odd reflection that spooks the both of them. But again, much like before, Runa just holds her head down and she says she better not think about it. But just after this, Thor looks to his side as they hear a large clink and he calls for Lhasa. And it's here where we find that just ahead, Corvus' glaive has tried to open the next door, but he can't. And surely under other circumstances, his glaive could cut through stone, carbon, or vibranium. It could split atoms. But unfortunately, when it comes to Asgardian blood magic, that's a no can do. But with Corvus failing to unlock this door using Lhausa's blood, Thor and Runa catch up with them shortly after. And initially, Corvus hits Thor with the "come any closer and your sister dies," while also claiming that he could care less about the child. And just behind them, Runa spots a number of Draugrs making their way closer, as Corvus' glaive then gives Thor the offer to take Lhausa's place and give his blood instead of her. But of course, with Thor finally catching up with Corvus, in a raging temper, he sends a pack of lightning wolves at the guy. But even with this happening, Thor isn't sure how he did it. And I mean, he's not sorry that he did it, he's just not sure how he did it. But with him handing Lhasa to Runa, Runa lets Thor know that this isn't good and the magic here is beginning to affect them. But given the situation, Thor tells Runa to keep the Draugrs away. And for a moment during this chaos, after Thor hits Corvus, Lhasa picks up Corvus' glaive, remembering the woman she had seen, hidden and quiet, and not feeling a wink of fear. But at this point, with Corvus knocked down, he questions why Thor isn't gonna kill him, only for Thor to then respond that there are fates worse than death. But then Corvus says there are not anymore. Only for the lightning wolves to then jump back on him and just maul Corvus to death. But again, with this happening, Thor says that he didn't intentionally do this. But be that as it may, Runa lets Thor know that he's scaring her and they gotta get out of here quick. But instead of leaving, Thor orders Runa to take Lhasa and get her out of there safely. And initially Runa doesn't want to leave him, but she's gotta obey the king's order. And with the two of them gone, Thor then spills a lot of his blood to unlock this next door that was sealed with Bor's blood magic. But as it opens, Odin speaks from the hammer, telling Thor it hurts. Make it stop. Make it stop. Please, son, I beg you, leave this place. Only for Thor to just continue on his way while apologizing to his father, telling his father that he needs to know for himself. But then it's here as Thor makes his way through this door when we see this mysterious magical beetle again, only for it to then fly into the hand of Dr. Doom. Because if anyone's gonna discover some power, you can count on Dr. Doom to try and steal it. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.